Imagine you are accused of a crime you deny committing. You ask the judge for a lawyer, but are told you cannot have one if you cannot afford one. What do you do when facing a trial alone, convicted, and sentenced to 5 years in prison? The man at the center of this story is Clarence Earl Gideon. In 1961, Gideon was arrested for felony breaking and entering and alleged theft of wine and change. Facing trial, he could not afford to hire a lawyer. When Gideon requested the court appoint counsel, the judge refused. The judge stated that, under Florida law, counsel could only be appointed for a defendant charged with a capital offense. Forced to represent himself as a layman, Gideon was found guilty and sentenced to 5 years. While incarcerated, he studied law and became a, quote, jailhouse lawyer, determined to appeal his conviction, believing his Sixth Amendment rights were violated. The constitutional question concerned a fractured right to counsel. The Sixth Amendment guarantees the right to have the assistance of counsel for defense. However, the precedent, Betts v. Brady, ruled that the 14th Amendment did not require states to provide counsel for all indigent defendants in non-capital felony cases. Before 1963, the right to appointed counsel was guaranteed in federal and state capital cases. However, state non-capital felony cases like Gideon's did not guarantee this right, only providing it in, quote, special circumstances. From his prison cell, using prison stationery, Gideon petitioned the U.S. Supreme Court to hear his case. He argued that the trial court's refusal to appoint counsel denied him his constitutional rights. The Supreme Court agreed to hear Gideon's case. The central question was whether the holding in Betts v. Brady should be reconsidered. On March 18, 1963, the court ruled 9-0 in favor of Gideon, overturning Betts v. Brady. Justice Hugo Black wrote that any person too poor to hire a lawyer cannot be assured a fair trial unless counsel is provided for him. He called this an, quote, obvious truth. The court reasoned that governments spend vast sums on the prosecution of defendants, indicating that lawyers are deemed essential. Therefore, legal counsel is a necessity, not a luxury, in criminal courts. The court emphasized that the noble ideal of a fair trial cannot be realized if a poor defendant has to face accusers without a lawyer to assist him. Following the Supreme Court's decision, Clarence Earl Gideon was granted a new trial in Florida. This time, represented by a public defender, the prosecution's case was dismantled. After an hour, the jury found him not guilty. The Gideon decision fundamentally altered the American criminal justice system. It led to the creation of public defender offices and other systems across the country to provide counsel to indigent defendants. The map illustrates how states fund these services. The right to counsel is now established, but challenges remain regarding its promise. These include questions of defense lawyer effectiveness, severe underfunding of public defender offices, and massive caseloads limiting time attorneys can dedicate to each person. Robert F. Kennedy observed that if Gideon had not sat down in prison to write a letter to the Supreme Court, the vast machinery of American law would have gone on undisturbed. Gideon changed the course of legal history. Before Gideon, many defendants, particularly the poor, were forced to represent themselves in serious criminal cases, often with little understanding of the law. Why was Clarence Earl Gideon's case significant in 1963? And how did it expose inequalities in the American justice system at the time? The decision incorporated the right to counsel at the state level, reinforcing the idea that a fair trial requires legal representation, not just the opportunity to speak in court. How did the Supreme Court's ruling in Gideon v. Wainwright transform the interpretation of the Sixth Amendment? Millions of Americans rely on public defenders today, raising questions about access to justice, fairness, and equal protection under the law. In what ways is the right to a public defender still essential in today's criminal justice system? Issues such as underfunding, heavy caseloads, and unequal resources show that while the right exists, its implementation is still imperfect. What challenges do public defender systems face today, and how do those challenges reflect the ongoing legacy of Gideon v. Wainwright? The case remains a cornerstone for discussions about whether the justice system truly treats all individuals equally, regardless of wealth. How does Gideon versus Wainwright continue to shape debates about justice, poverty, and constitutional rights in the United States?